In this lesson, we're looking at multiplication and division using integers. Specifically, the thing that we're going to look at that is probably the thing that makes it a bit hard is when you're dealing with negatives and how that works. Though I reckon it's probably easier than adding and subtracting negatives. Anyway, let's get into it. Before you do get into it though, one thing you might want to do is do a multiplication quiz. You might have seen these kind of times tables things in primary school. They're really good to build up that speed with your times tables. It's really useful to have that information in your head when doing these problems. It just makes it much quicker and easier. So the rule for how it works, if you're going to be multiplying or dividing two integers, the answer will always be a positive number if the two numbers you're multiplying or dividing have the same sign. So I've got a little picture here. If you've got both positive or both negative, you're going to end up with this nose here of a positive sign, right? Happy, right? Same signs, you end up with positive, happy face. If they have opposite signs, whichever way it is, negative, positive, positive, negative, you're always going to end up with a negative sign as your answer. So your answer will come out as a negative number if you've multiplied things with different signs. So if you want, you could draw this in your book, maybe at the top of the page, just to remind you how it works. Yeah. So, for example, if we knew that 5 times 4 is 20, which hopefully we do, then what would be the answer to the following? And we can just use these little tools to help us. So minus 5 times 4, well, we've got here a negative times a positive, so it must be negative. So it's negative 20. The answer doesn't change, just the sign. Here, we're looking at this one. We got a positive, then a negative, so it must also be negative, right? Here, we've got two negatives. That takes us here to a positive, so it must be positive 20. Two negatives make a positive. Now, that seems a bit strange to you. I'll explain some logic behind that near the end of this video, but for the moment, we're just kind of using the rule. Okay, let's have a look at this next example. So a product is another name we use for multiplication. When you're doing a multiplication, that's called doing a product. And all we've got to do is determine whether these products would be positive or negative. Here, we've got one positive number, one negative number. So that means that this one would have to be negative, seeing as we've got opposite signs. Negative answer to this product. This one, we've got two negatives. If you've got the same sign, you always end up with a positive answer. Very good. All right. So let's just evaluate some of these. So here we've got minus 24 divided by 12. So here I've got opposite signs. So I know my answer is going to be negative. So I'll draw that negative sign in. 24 on 12. Well, I know 2 times 12 is 24. So it must be minus 12. This is what I mean by being really quick with your times tables is helpful. Just being able to do that makes that division easier, knowing my 12 times tables. All right, here we got minus 3 times minus 9. So I know it's going to be positive, so I won't bother writing in the positive sign. Got two negative times in here. So what, 3 times 9, what's that? 27. So it's just 27, and I'll leave it as that, positive 27. All right, here again, I've got one positive, one negative. So it'll end up as negative. 50 on 5, so 50 divided by 5 goes in 10 times. Cool. All right, let's talk a bit about where this comes from. So the way to really, one way to make it make sense is if you think of multiplication as repeated addition, then this starts to make sense. So for example, what I mean by that is, and what do I mean by repeated addition? So 2 times 3, you could think of as this multiplication telling you add 3 together twice. So 3 plus 3. Alternatively, this is the same as saying 3 times 2, right? It's also the same. So it would be having 3 lots of 2 added together. So 2 plus 2 plus 2. And however you do it, whichever way you do it, you always end up with 6. Remember, with multiplication, order doesn't matter. So these things are the same. These repeated additions are the same. Now, alternatively, if we've got a negative number, so we're still doing that repeated addition, right? So 2 times negative 3 would be you're adding together minus 3 twice, right? The alternative way of thinking about it is that it'd be like, because it's a negative, it'd be the same as like subtracting 2 3 times. And that gives you minus 6. So we're starting to see, well, we've got here one positive, one negative, and we end up with a negative answer just from repeated addition, that you're adding a negative together twice, you get minus 6. Now the kind of weirder case still of where you get two negatives making a positive. Well, now it's like I've got 3 lots of -3, but I'm subtracting them each time. So it'll be like take away -3, take away -3, take away -3. Oh wait, no, only twice. We'll get rid of that. Or alternatively, the other way, you're taking away -2 3 times. So -2, take away -2, take away -2. Just putting them in brackets to avoid confusion with the negative sign and the subtraction, yeah? Anyway, if you do either of that, remember how if if you're taking away a negative, like a minus sign and a negative sign, you get a plus sign, right? So you're really adding. So you end up with +6, right? So here we can see why if you've got two negatives times together, you end up with a positive. All right, well, I hope that was helpful for you.